in this journey, we will try to see whether our current, practice or what we are doing are really leading us to the idea of learning. Okay? Because whether we like it or not, that is the major, objective of any educational activity, and that is to ensure learning, isn't it? So if we will just certify people that, okay, you passed my course, you have a B, you have an A, but if you will try to compare really, if half of the class have an A, half of the class have B, it doesn't mean all the B's have the same knowledge, isn't it?
Yes.
It doesn't mean all the A's have the same knowledge.
Yes.
So how are we going to somehow create a mental model of what is really learning? Okay? So in this journey, what I would like to share to you is how we simply ensure that we really are facilitating learning. Okay? So, you want us to start?
Yes.
Okay. So, very simple. I asked you to do something. Okay? Oh, Catherine, we asked them to do an assignment.
Okay.
I don't know if you
So
were
should I
able
have
to.
come in like
Okay, just write any learning outcome that
Dr.
comes to
Angelo
you.
is not going to give us leads.
No, promise.
No, really, no.
So this activity, I cannot do the entire constructive alignment as an experience, okay? Because what we will do is still a lecture type thing, and at the same time we will try to engage, okay? Now, the idea here is to, for me, if I deliver a module, the idea is always to change mental models, okay? That is my objective. If I will not achieve that in the end, then that means it's either I failed to deliver the goods, or my listener or participants is not ready for it. Okay? So that's the idea. Because I cannot control the learning that you will get out of this. It's the same paradigm that I have. Every time I will deliver a class, I will tell to the class the benefit you will get from this encounter or in this engagement is not so much of what I can give. It is your, participation and engagement that will guarantee that, not me. Okay? I only have the content, but I don't have the power to tell you, learn. Isn't it?
Yes.
I don't have the power to do that.
Yes.
Okay? So, what I will do is, I will try to give you the principles, and then we will try to see whether we can apply this principle of constructive alignment. Okay? So this is what we want to achieve at the end of this session. Now, there are two major theories that underlie this thing or somehow supported this constructive alignment approach. Okay? The first one is phenomenography, and the other one is constructivism. You always hear constructivism now, because this is now the time where education is trying to wake up, because we miss a lot. Okay? Constructivism now is espousing a learning paradigm that says learning is being constructed by the learner, which is totally different from our orientation, isn't it? We still hear that learning is transfer of knowledge. For constructivist paradigm, it's no longer true. There is no such thing as transfer of knowledge. I cannot transfer what is in my brain to your brain. It won't happen. It won't happen. That's why our idea of learning now is no longer external. It is internally done by the learner. Okay? That is a very different mental model altogether. Okay? Now, what's this phenomenography? The idea here is that learning is happening on a certain point of experience. It's always a phenomenon. So meaning, we see things differently, we perceive things differently, we interpret reality differently, okay? We hear things differently actually. I'm saying one thing, but here you are, you have five here in my class now giving me different interpretation, isn't it? And nobody controls that. It's only the learner. So here, we are looking at learning experience in the way that we, the learner, is the architect of that experience. You're the one designing it. Okay? It's not me. Me, I will just create the condition. The mental model that will change now in your mind is something I cannot control, but I can facilitate. I may challenge what is inside your mind now. You may find out, oh, this is something new. Oh, I think I like it. That is the one that gives value to what I'm saying. Okay? So constructivism and this phenomenography gives us a very good insight on what learning is all about. It is an experience, and it's being constructed. Okay?
If I look at your definition,
Mm-hmm.
phenomenography and constructivism, I do not quite see the difference. I think they are almost the same, no? Because the phenomenography, if you look at it, you are saying that this is something, the relations and the observation, like different aspects that define phenomena. In these situations, are you talking about the variations in the sense of what is happening now in the surrounding? Whether constructivism is what's happening in my mind? Yes.
The variation is dependent on the learner.
Then the same with constructivism.
Yeah, it's not different.
Is it?
What I'm saying is these are the two major theories that helps the constructive alignment approach. Okay, we're not saying it's different. These are contributory. These two ideas that came out are contributories to the understanding of what learning is now. Okay? What phenomenography is telling is it is an experience. If it is a personal experience, that means it's a personal interpretation of the knowledge. Okay? Nobody can force you to believe something unless you say, I like it. Okay? Unless the learner says, oh, that's nice. I want to learn that. Okay? Because that is a different experience. Your experience is different from her experience, from her experience, from her experience, and for his experience. Nobody will have the same experience. That's what phenomenography is telling. Okay? That's why you will see here, what they are saying is that learners are so diverse. We can no longer use the generic treatment of students. I can no longer treat you similarly. Okay? If I will handle a class, the first thing that I need to do is understand your differences in terms of learning skills, learning, a habit, learning attitudes, and how you would like to engage the class. Okay? And how fast others and how slow others will cope up with my class. That is catering to the personal experience. Constructivism is how you understand the world around you. Okay? How you will reconstruct that understanding, that experience. Okay? So you might say, okay, the module of Dr. A is quite vague for me. Somebody will say, I think it's okay, it's clear. Okay? So that means you're already reconstructing your own interpretation based on your prior knowledge, based on what you have before you come to class. Okay? So remember, I'm not differentiating it, I'm not contradicting these two, but these are the two theories that will help us understand teaching and learning. This is what I'm saying. Meaning is personal. Even though I give you a definition, without your experience entering into the meaning activities, it will have no value. That's why some students are just memorizing definitions. After the exam, they will not remember it again. Isn't it? Why? Because there is no experience of that definition. So there's no meaning. There's no personal meaning to me. So here, if we have this kind of idea, that means we need to see students how they interpret their realities, how they put meaning into it. Okay? That's why it's very important to touch on the personal side of the learner. You cannot dichotomize it. Okay? Next, learning is a way of interacting. This is what the phenomenography is telling. It must be experienced. Learning is seen in the value of social interaction and in the interaction of the reality. That's the idea. Okay? Without it, it will remain an information. It will never be a knowledge. Okay? Remember that. Without the personal and the interacting value of learning, it will be very difficult to see learning in the long-term memory. It will always be in the short-term memory. So if you're giving them exams, more likely the information they will give you are only in the short-term memory. After the exam, it will vanish. It's done. No more exam, no?
Because they tend to regurgitate what
Yes,
teach them. Then
that's
after
true.
that, once everything is out, that's it.
That's it. I'm tired. After sleeping, no more, isn't it?
Yes.
So that's the idea, because there is nothing inside. It's not personalized. Okay? Now let's see how Prof. John Bates introduced this thing. The theory states simply that learners' actions define what is learned and that the knowledge is actively constructed by the individual. What do you get out of this simple theory of John Bates? What is he telling us?
As they learn, they define, they make their own meanings, and once the meaning is made, they internalize it, and that's how they interact with the people and the environment around them.
What is the implication of this? What is the challenge being posed by the constructivist perspective?
Students take responsibility.
In the learning,
They have the responsibility.
the
And if we
outcome
say they
becomes-
have the responsibility, then where is my responsibility as a teacher and as a lecturer?
You actually help them to you actually facilitate.
facilitate,
You
yeah.
actually give them because
Guidance.
yes.
But still, it's a gray area because the constructivist perspective is challenging the norm. Remember, the prevailing practice, whereby teachers are oriented to think learning as something transferable. Isn't it?
That's the problem. Yes.
That's the mentality that is prevailing in the moment, isn't it? So it will create a vacuum in a gray area whereby, okay, I know what is constructive alignment, I know what is constructivist perspective, but still I believe I'm the one in control.
Yes.
Oops,
So,
something is wrong.
There's no contradiction.
I think that is the
Isn't
problem
it?
that we face. Simply
Yeah.
because we so used, I'm so used.
Yes, nobody is exempted.
Information.
I am also a product of the same system. But how to change now my mental model to this thing is totally different.
We have to unlearn.
We need to unlearn and we need to personalize our understanding.
Yes.
Unless we convince ourselves that this is learning, then it will not push through. It will not grow, it will not progress. It will always go back to, okay, just memorize the content. Anyway, it's about the exam.
I think more important is they must see the meaning of what they are doing.
But if that's the problem is that the examination is such that they need to pass, they need to do well.
Yeah.
You
For
know,
example,
That's the mentality that's killing the initiative.
Yeah.
Because it's learning for the exam. It's not learning for learning's sake. Isn't it?
One example is because I'm teaching one subject that's called creative and feature writing for the media. Okay, so I just set them a second assignment which they're supposed to do a profile or an obituary. So they're supposed to do research and all that. And I have this Facebook group and they give the feedback to me as they miss. I enjoy doing this assignment. I say, so I want you to enjoy doing that, the piece of research, not because you're given an assignment, but because you are doing something that you found out something. Oh, I learned so much from my auntie. Before doing this assignment,
haven't heard
I
anything.
I don't really know her. So I
Yeah.
say I enjoy doing it. So I feel that in that situation, learning has taken place.
Because it became
Yes.
personal
Yeah.
and it became valuable
And
for
it's
the
meaningful.
learner.
So I'm not doing an assignment because you asked me to do an assignment.
True.
I'm doing something, it's like a piece of research, but I find enjoyment doing it.
I think if we miss that point, that will bridge us to the new mental model actually.
Yes.
If the objective or the learning outcome is clear and established by the learner, not by the teacher, okay, the learner, then it has now a personalized, thing. It's now becoming my learning outcome, not my teacher's learning outcome. Okay, that's the idea. That's why sometimes prescriptive learning outcome is not good. I think what the school is missing is to give the objective of the course and let the teacher help the students develop their own learning outcome. In that way, you are giving the students the idea right from the very start, it is your responsibility to learn.
Wow. That means they actually come up with what they want to learn.
Yes, by understanding the objective of the course, okay, the students together with the teacher can now sit down and say, how do you want this to be achieved?
But wouldn't that be bordering on humanism then?
Well, it is really humanism. We are now in the stage where we are giving, premium to the individual. That's the idea, to give the personal touch in learning. I asked you to watch the video. I don't know if you came across with the Susan and Robert video on constructive alignment. You can still check it out with that website in the YouTube. You can just type in Susan and Robert. It's very popular in the YouTube. Okay? Yeah. There are two types of students in our classroom. Most often two types. These are the two types of students you have. Susan, great. This is something nice. This is something I like to pursue. Okay? And this is Robert. Isn't it?
Yeah, you can see that on their faces anyway.
You can. So they came up with this description, and they have a very nice video to characterize the two. But this is the baseline information that they are sending. That there are students who are intrinsically, okay, motivated, and there are students who are not. Okay? So for them, there are internal motivation and there is external motivation. Okay? When the student comes to your class and say, Miss, can you give us the pointers for the exam or the final so that we can pass? My objective is just to get an A. Is that an external or internal motivation?
External.
It's an external motivation.
That sounds like me.
Rewards.
Just not like us.
Yeah, just like us before, isn't it? We were trained to be like that. And even now our kids are being forced to train like that, isn't it? Hey, be good in your class, okay? What do you have tomorrow? What kind of exam? Come on, let's have a review.
It's not only that, even at our master's level, we are doing the same thing.
Is it because of the system that we have actually then?
Yes, the educational system that we experienced long time ago is patterned after that. Why? Primarily because the educational psychology that was introduced is based on this model. Changing behavior is the definition of learning in the psychology of education before. Okay? So when you use change in behavior as a definition of learning, then you will have a problem. It doesn't mean the person is behaving differently, doesn't mean they learn.
That's why we are the product of the education system, basically easy for the government to handle.
This is the easiest to handle and to administer. Why? Because you're just following a pattern.
Yes.
You know, you are just patterning and putting them in a box, you know. That's why all 7 years old will go to grade 1. Who says so?
That's why Sir Ken Robinson actually made a statement. He said that our education system is pretty much like a factory. We
Because
just
it's
produce products.
industrial model.
Yeah, industrial model.
I think I still have a CPT on the 5 learning orientations sometime June. I will discuss from behaviorism to constructivism, the 5 orientations of learning.
Yes.
You know? So this is how we are now trying to reflect on what we are doing now. What is wrong? What is not working anymore? This is not working anymore.
But
Students must be internally motivated.
so
not
is
externally.
constructivism actually a process or is it a praxis?
It is a theory and it's the principle now. It's emerging as the most popular approach, especially in learning, constructivism.
So it is no longer the process, or is it?
It is a process because it's a practice. You know, you need to do something in order to arrive at the alignment.
May I ask, you know the Americans, the education system, they actually advocate constructivism. And if you look at the American kids, they're very vocal. They can be vocal, but they're nowhere.
I think what is missing in the approach and you know the culture is different. I think the Eastern is us from Asia especially. It is the value that is different. you know.
Yes.
Different
How we
approach.
value the learning. Here in Asia, education is valued differently. You know, every family would like to see you educated.
Yeah.
For them, the model is still the same and it's no longer working. Even though they move to certain constructivist perspective, what is not working is that their learning is still learning for work.
Yes.
Yeah?
Here also we are still learning for work as well.
That is the failure in some emphasis. We are still learning for work.
Yes.
We're not learning for life.
Yes.
Isn't it?
That's what I'm saying. In
Yeah.
America, they're doing what we are going to do now, but they
But
failed.
the constructive alignment is the one that is so aligned to lifelong learning, you know.
Yes.
And that is what we are missing. If we connect lifelong learning and use the right theories and perspective, then we can change the educational system. But it will take some time because we need to retrain and retool again teachers.
Yes, definitely.
Because it will be difficult.
It will be very difficult.
Yes.
It
Just
is
to change our
difficult.
mindset.
Because one government is dictating what learning is all about,
Yeah.
isn't it? What education is all about.
It's not only that, we also have to deal with discrimination.
That's another
And
thing. That's another
it's a
cultural
huge-
issue.
Yeah, it's a huge cultural issue in the education system.
So I think what is important here is when it comes to student models, we need to go away with the external motivations. You know, don't give them the emphasis of A's. Don't give them the emphasis of getting high marks and all these things because it's not working. It's not sustainable. Once you give that prize, it's all over. It's not internally desired by students to learn. Start by telling them, hey class, you're in this class not because you will be graded, but because you want to learn. So if this is not your objective, you're on the losing end. I'm not going to pay, they will not reduce my pay if you fail, isn't it? I will have the same pay, so whether you like it or not, you have to learn.
Some
And that is
institutions
something.
Some institution you lose your job.
Yeah, I mean, but whose teachers are removed just because they failed students? Nobody,
Yeah, very
isn't
sad.
it? Nobody. Because the teachers say, I'm not in control. I just deliver the content, isn't it? That's the idea. But if we will have to work on this framework, I think the idea is to set the tone, especially in the beginning, to let them discover their internal motivation. Why are you here in this class? Why are you attending? Why are you taking this course? How do you think it will benefit you? Because if you cannot answer this question, then you're on the losing end.
But
I can give you A now, and you can step out of the class if you like.
But this takes
Isn't
a lot of teachers' personality.
True.
It involves the teacher teacher as a person.
That's why if we're not going to change teacher's mental model,
Yeah.
we have a very big problem.
Yeah.
That's why this module is not really teaching you a trick. This module is changing our mental models, whether we like to change or not. That's the point, isn't it? So you will discover here the second one, which is crucial, the teacher models. There are 3 levels according to Biggs. Where are you? The level 1 is your perspective of the student. As a teacher, you always say, oh, my student is poor, my student is lazy, my student is blah, blah, blah. That's why they fail, you know. They don't like to talk to my class, they don't like to engage. It's my student, it's their fault. That's teacher 1. The teacher 2 is what we are always doing also now, which is we try to teach the teacher some tricks on how to sustain attention. You know, some teachers needs to perform quite a lot, like showing nice videos, creating jokes and everything, just to sustain the attention.
Guilty.
That's most of it. You'll be worse, you're at the level 1.
But there are a lot of level 1 and level 2, I tell you. Here, you are trying to make an idea that you want to please the students. That's why it's what you do. The first level is what the students are, how you perceive them. The third level is so difficult because here, the question is what students do, what they should do in the class in order for them to learn. Okay? So unless we reach this point, then it will be very difficult.
But if, Dr. Angelo, if you have a class of, say, 24, 25, and you're teaching language,
Okay?
how can we actually focus on what they do? Half the time, you are actually fighting with them over their attention on focusing on the lesson or focusing on something that they're doing there. The class is so huge sometimes that you cannot control.
True, the limitation is there as well. Okay? Constructivist approach, yes, we'll have to work with smaller classes. Okay? Now that we have bigger classes, the only creativity that I can share to you is to break them into groups. You must know how to manage group in a class or different groups, okay? Because the idea here is to empower them to realize that it is not you who is the center, it is them, okay? By giving them certain responsibilities in connection with how they will achieve something, I tell you, students are also responsible. The thing is, we always insist on level 1. We always have a perception you cannot do it.
Actually, I do level 3. In fact, most of my classes are in groups, and usually I'll have a leader. I'll assign a leader, and even I don't stay in front of the class to teach. When they do peer correction and all, I get students to come out
Yeah, true.
to ask questions and to write. But you will always have a few, or maybe 1 or 2.
Definitely, you will have outliers. You cannot get everybody attended. But these people will eventually realize that they will be on the losing end because they are not benefiting much from the experience. We cannot control it because the idea here is for us to create the condition. But that condition is not to convince everybody. That condition will just let them decide whether I will participate or not.
I guess that's the reason why we need to know our learners well in order to
That's true.
create the activities.
That is the first step to constructivism, knowing who they are. Okay, why is it called alignment? First, it is constructively based, okay, based on the constructivist theory. Alignment means we need to fine-tune our appreciation of the learning outcome, the teaching learning activities, and your assessment. Okay? How are we going to do that? I think it's going back to your assignment. How are you doing with that? With the assignment? If you will look at it, is it really aligned? Can you really achieve your learning outcome with the activities you have and with the assessment that you have? What did you place there? Nancy.
Okay.
Can you explain what I'm reading?
I was physics teacher.
Uh-huh.
So we were, so I'm in this situation, I'm teaching Newton's law. So what I'm going to do is the learning outcomes I want them to be able to learn, to design an experiment, to test that law, okay? And the activities and the assignment is basically that I want is they're able to write out procedures to carry out experiments. Yeah, I think this is quite simple.
Uh-huh. The only apprehension I have there is still it's vague if I'm the learner.
Yes.
The learning outcome is like, let's say, to design, to design an experiment or an activity. You're telling me that I will be the one to do an activity. You see? But what if I were able to design the activity? What am I achieving? That's another question that I would pose if I'm the learner. Okay? I think the best learning outcome is a very direct verb that you will discover later on. Okay? It must be a verb that will say what we should trigger, what we should activate in the teaching and learning, and this must be something observable in the end so that we can assess. Okay? You will find that later on. As we move on, I will move on with your examples as we move on with the discussion. This is a common mistake.
Excuse me, will you be sharing your slides with us?
Yeah, definitely. And I'm trying to record this so that you can always review the tape.
Thank you very much. I will not copy anymore.
Yeah, no need. Just listen and engage.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so they said in terms of curriculum design, this is always a problem. Okay? And there are two major knowledge, or shall we say knowledges, that we can categorize, that we are always playing with. Okay? This is the declarative and the functional knowledge. Okay? Most often than not, we are after coverage. Isn't it? Coverage, meaning content. Your dean or your whoever will ask you, be sure you finish the coverage. And for students, that's the most difficult part. Why? Because you're telling them to eat everything, Open your mouth and swallow everything, okay? And you only have 14 weeks to do that.
So in my case, only 6 weeks.
Oh, okay, see?
I don't know how they can digest everything. My
Digestion, that's right.
True. Information indigestion most of the time. And it's not only about one subject. Some students are taking 4, 5, So how will they be able to accommodate all these things if we are really aiming for learning? Okay?
Already week 3, I've got students breaking down already.
True. So this is our objective. So I'll give you the simple formula ILO-TLAAT. Okay? Just be sure that you know that. Okay? Intended learning outcome, teaching learning activities, and the assessment task. These are the questions we need to ask every time we will do this. Okay? The first one is, what do we want the learners to know? That's the first question, isn't it? What do you want them to know in your subject? Huh? Usually, what is the course that you're handling, Henry?
Mine, creative and feature writing for the media.
Okay, let's say that is the question.
Yeah.
What do I want my student to know about this?
They need to know how to write an article that is suitable for publication in media.
Should
Very, very.
write an article.
Yeah.
See, the verb is so direct, So, when you present that to the student and ask the student, initially this is the learning outcome that we are supposed to do. This is the only thing I would like you to do at the end of the course. And this is how I'm going to assess you. right. See? So that is a very direct learning outcome. So you are now very sure what do you want the learners to know, isn't it? So the second step now is to design the activities. How will the learners learn that thing, Catherine? What will you do?
How do they learn? Okay, so for example, the first
What will be your
assignment
DLA?
is, they are supposed to write an opinion piece. So they are supposed to look at different articles and they are supposed to comment on it. Why is this good and why is this no good? Why is this suitable for publication and this is not? Okay. One simple thing is when you write for the media, it is based on facts. But because this subject is creative and feature writing, how do you make the facts come alive? You have to be creative. So you are
So
not.
this is given the idea that part and parcel of the experience is that you will present some preliminaries, of course, how to write creative,
Yeah.
articles and all
They
those
will do
parameters.
research
Yeah,
themselves
yeah.
as well.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the idea of your comparing and assessing what is good and what is not is a very good approach because you are giving them certain guidelines,
Yes.
and you don't just tell them in a lecture type because you just gave them an activity to do, and that's good.
And
Okay.
also tell them, the first lesson I will tell them, I will ask them this question: why are you doing this course? You're not
True.
doing because it is part of a module. It's because that they are communication students. So you'll be dealing a lot with the media and publication. So if you have the knowledge, you can apply this knowledge in the future. Do you see my point? Otherwise, you don't see any point in learning.
I think that is very
Yeah.
good in having this kind of conversation with them.
Yes,
Make it a running, conversation. Repeat it every now and then so the students will know why they are in your class.
Yeah,
It's
because
very
I
important.
say that when you come to class, you just come and sit down, listen to lecture, and do an assignment and forget it. That's not what I want. Learning has not taken place at them.
True, true.
I said I want learning to take place. They say how means? I said okay. If you do this, like for example the second assignment, they were so happy. They said, this is a very interesting course
See?
because we are doing something that we are doing research and we gain more knowledge. So we are not actually doing an assignment. I said good. I want you to perceive it that way. I don't want you to think of it as a task
Being
where you have to
imposed.
do,
Yeah.
imposed,
Yeah.
and then you get your grades.
True, true.
But the one thing that you say the reward is very true. Whenever I ask them to do something, they say, will this be graded? For example,
Because the
the,
mental model is there,
Yes.
which we have to tone down, The motivation must be greater than what we are going to get because the prize is already received. Learning is already the price of it. Putting an external thing gives them a different perspective, that every time I'm going to achieve something, I need to get something, That's why later on, when you attend that 5 learning orientation, you will find out that we are very much like that up to now, We want to reward
it's always
achievement,
reward.
isn't it?
Is it
But if you
graded?
will notice the model in educational psychology, you are just, scratching the surface, of achievement by giving them external reward. The real reward there is that you were able to learn. And this is something that nobody can take from you. Even though you have an A or a B, actually it doesn't matter. What matters is what you know and what you can perform later on.
But unfortunately for my students, most of them are scholarship students. So there's no way they can forget the grades.
It will not be. It will not happen over time. My goodness, I tell you, this is a systemic, condition that was brought about by series and long experiences in education. Okay, but we need to move somewhere,
But
at
because
this
they
point.
need to achieve a certain level for the scholarship to continue. Otherwise they will be dropped.
But that should not be the motivation. The motivation is to learn and to perform better. If you want that grade, it will come. You don't need to pray for it. Just do what is necessary.
I think basically is they will be exposed to the external education, no matter what. When they come in here, our job is to help them to
The
reach
value
first
in
level, the value of it.
yeah,
That's what we hope to do.
yeah,
But
true.
that second, that external motivation.
Given, that's
we
already
can't do
given.
anything about
That's
it.
already given.
Yes.
But somehow it covers the real intention.
Yeah.
That's the problem. We give so much emphasis on the reward and punishment, isn't it? But not so much on the real thing. That's the point. Okay? The third one, how will we know that the learners have learned? What is your direct assessment, Catherine?
My direct assessment is a assignment.
The right?
That means the
Yeah.
the
How well they will write.
An
Yeah.
essay lah.
an essay.
The essay. That's true. So, if the objective from the learning outcome is to write, the activity is to write, and the assessment is how well you have written. Isn't it? So, your verb must be crystallized along the way. You know? You should not miss that. You cannot just say, okay, my objective is to write a creative article. Then I have this teaching and learning activities whereby I will teach them how to write creatively, blah, 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 and then they have their activities. And then the assessment, it will be a multiple choice, asking them what are the guidelines for writing creative, articles. If you test them along that line, you did not meet the learning outcome. It's a wrong
That's
assessment.
what the school system is about.
Yeah!
Assistance.
I came from the school system. I was so against it. You know? Yeah, I said.
We are forced to memorize, rather than to
All
understand.
this while actually we were taught of that.
Yeah,
and
true,
for
true.
this, and then because it is more towards exam orientated, so students.
Yeah, that is the learning for exam, true.
Yeah, that paper to get the cert.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what actually they will be able.
That's why this constructive approach and constructive alignment will have a very difficult time. Okay? Why? Because the mental model is not yet there. The teachers don't believe in that yet.
Yeah.
Okay?
Seriously.
I think what is important here for you as well is if you have kids, if you have, children on your own, you have to start somewhere.
Even though we try to start, but then when we see, of course, like neighbors, okay, we send us, even though we don't send them to what you call this, the tuition centers or whatever, but when we see our neighbors sending their own, so we will try to compete.
That's another mental model. Okay, this is how we're going to combine it, okay? So we place the ILO because that is what we want to achieve, okay? And there will be a model that we can adopt. Let's say for you to get an A, you have to be like this, and if you have, failed to, crystallize this in a better way, then you just take a D or a level D understanding, okay? Now, I will show you the breakdown of that later on in the Solo taxonomy. And if you will notice, it is the express verb that you want to enact. That is your ILO.
That's the blue.
That's very important. The blooms, okay? That is where blooms is coming in,
Yes.
okay? But I will help you crystallize bloom in a different way later on because that is called a different taxonomy, and there is a solo taxonomy that will give you a more bigger picture why blooms is it's still instrumental, very useful. So here, you will design to elicit that verb to be activated. You have to activate the verb, okay? So that means it's either teacher, okay, activated, peer activated, or student activated. There are some activities that teacher must activate the activity. There are some activities whereby they will learn it from their peer, okay, like group activities, and so on. And then there are some that still very much student, activity. They need to do it, okay? Then, when it comes to the assessment task, you will see that the highest level verb to be clearly manifested becomes the final grade. So, meaning that verb that we try to enact has certain level of achievement, okay? And that is where we will differentiate now how far did they benefit from the learning outcome, okay? So if the question is, the assessment on Catherine is how well did they write, okay, the creative article or whatever publishable material. There will be some analysis further. So if you will notice, this is more qualitative than quantitative. Because constructive alignment promotes qualitative assessment, not quantitative assessment. Okay? Now, Hudson gave us this paradigm, which I believe, yeah, it's a bit tricky because there are a lot of arrows. But I think what is being given as an information is to see intended learning outcome, okay, in relation to learning and in relation to the assessment. Okay? So no problem, I will share this to you, but take note, you need to have the right criteria for assessment. Okay? That's why the question is, why am I assessing? How am I assessing? And who will do the assessment? You will see that later on. Now, in the assessment part, if you are using constructive alignment, you cannot avoid this. There is an intended outcome that you may not plan, but still achieved by the students.
Certain values.
Yeah. It depends on the degree, on how they perform, and how did they imbibe the knowledge and the understanding. That's why what Bloom's is telling is just to activate the verb. What the Solow taxonomy you will find out is that it gives you a different perspective on the level of understanding. That is where the learners differentiate. They have the same learning outcome, they have the same activities, they have the same assessment, but the level of understanding will differ. How you will find it out, you will see it in the assessment. How you will categorize it, you will see it in the categories of Solow taxonomy. Now, there are two forms of assessment, isn't it? Are you familiar with this? I think Prof. Chan mentioned this, isn't it?
Yes.
The norm, okay, and then the criterion reference, you know? And most of the time, it's always the norm.
Yeah.
Okay? The grading system that we are doing now is norm, because you are being compared to your classmates. How you are performing against the group, you know? So you against the world. And it's not working.
No.
It's not working. Why?
Feel like an end.
Huh? Why is it not working? Why do you think so? Why is it norm reference is not working when it comes to learning?
Because it is not, basically the students are not participating actively in the learning. They basically regurgitate the learning. They just produce the results that we want.
That's one. Another thing.
Another thing is also because it demotivates those who do not do well.
Yeah. So when you strike the norm, meaning if you are not in the normal curve,
Yeah.
you're dead.
Yes.
Isn't it? It's either you are a star or you're dead.
A star as in an ostracized star.
Even the best are being ostracized, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
You are a nerd, you know,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
You see? So the idea of the norm reference is not promoting, okay, personal development, because you always compare yourself to other people,
Yes.
which should not be.
Yes.
That's why I think this value must reshape the educational approach. We should not compare students from another one. If we just want to see the general performance, fine, but not to label each student against the rest,
Yes.
because it's not good. Labeling is not good. That's why I think even in my previous experience in education, I think this encouragement came in when I think I lost my chance to be in the top 10. You know, when I was in high school. I'm not an achiever actually. You know. I really don't like those things that, you know, your name should be there, you know, something like that. I'm not like that. So my teacher is always pushing me and said, You know, you're always an underachiever. You can do better. You can always, your name can be there. So, because of this prompting, the system is prompting you to be like that. So I said, okay, why not? So I was able to enter. And then one time, this math teacher, gave me a grade that discriminate me from the rest and remove my name from the top 10. And from that time on, I promised myself I'm not going to achieve it.
Yes, because assessment is actually more of a point for motivation, much more than just assessing the person's performance.
It's still external motivation, isn't it?
Yes.
Giving high grades, giving this label, all
Yes.
these things. These are all external. Students are not appreciating it from the value perspective. That's the point. So here, what they are giving emphasis is the criterion reference, meaning how much did you really achieve in the learning process. So nobody will be compared to another student, but it is your individual performance. Okay? Based on the criteria that you set. So the same from Biggs. So this is the SOLO taxonomy. It's quite long, that's why they call it SOLO. The structure of the observed learning outcome. Observed, meaning it must be seen. It must be demonstrated by the students. Okay? And this is something that we can measure. So it means performance is important. Okay? Not just ideas. So it provides a systematic way of describing how learners' performance grow in complexity when mastering many tasks. Okay? We will see that as we move along. Okay, it can be used to define the course intended learning outcome. What is the picture of this solo? It's like this. Okay? So we have the first level, which is no understanding at all, meaning they don't have the idea. Okay? And then they have to move on until the extended abstract. And these are the SOLO taxonomy levels of understanding. Bloom's have his own version of it.
Yeah, but this one you can see that it's aligned along the constructive.
Yes. Bloom is not talking about constructive alignment.
No.
Bloom is just giving us the idea of the verbs, isn't it?
Yes.
And how the verbs are.
Yes.
Whether it is a basic understanding, whether it is a complex understanding, isn't it?
Yes.
But here, SOLO taxonomy is giving us what kind of level students can achieve at a certain point. Okay? So here, when you come up with your learning outcome, you have to ask yourself, on what level the students can achieve this learning outcome? If I will ask Catherine, for the sake of an example, writing a creative article or paper, how are you going to classify your projected student achievement? Where do you see it?
Very difficult to see which
Yeah. The uni-structural talks about only one concept, meaning the student can define it.
No, hers will be more complex.
Yours is more complex because writing an article means expressing what they know and what they fully understand and how far did they go with their discussion, isn't it? Whether they cross the line of relational until abstract. See? So this is very critical where Bloom's failed in a sense. Yeah, I think Bloom's were able to identify the basic information from identifying to analysis to evaluation, isn't it? But in applying it, I think that is where the limitations of Bloom's are. Here, the SOLO taxonomy by Biggs gives us a perspective that students can achieve a certain level of understanding, based on their own demonstration or performance. And they can even ask themselves, your assignment is like this. if you will grade your work, where do you think is the understanding? Are you describing only one concept? Are you describing a multiple idea? Are you describing a relational idea? Are you describing a more extended understanding? Okay? That's why in one of my sessions, I asked the participants, I don't know if you were there, I asked the definition, what is a flower? Can you define me what is a flower? What is a flower? You women love to receive flowers.
Love, beautiful,
Yeah.
Can you give me the essential meaning of what is a flower?
It's something that gives me the nice feeling, something that calm me down, you know, it's like appreciates beauty.
For me, a flower is more of a presentation of a person's feeling to another person.
I see it for myself. I don't need to receive that the flowers will be
See, that is the variation. What is a flower, Catherine?
Something sweet and nice.
Oh my God, I give you chocolates, the flowers. How about you? What is a flower?
Flower is something to love, to show your love.
You guys are.
Now you see why we always
So now you see why students you button. What is a flower for you? The only male.
after the daughter.
Huh?
We have to ask him also.
I will answer, don't worry.
Something to be appreciated, something to be, what do you call this, things are nice and
You guys are trying to break your brains. No, you're already on the extended abstract. I'm asking only a concept.
Oh.
What is a flower is the question. I'm not saying what represents flower, what gives flowers, what who, whatever. I'm not asking that. I'm asking what is the flower all about? What is it?
A life form.
Huh?
A life.
I have life. Am I a flower? See?
because we are giving you the different meanings of flower.
If I will go back to my time in my university where my philosophy teacher asked me that, okay, that's why I cannot forget it. I cannot answer it as well. I don't know. My philosophy teacher gave me this definition. A flower is a part of the plant that usually bears fruit.
Yeah.
Now,
That
can
is
you
the
argue?
concept.
That's a fact.
Can you argue with that concept?
No.
Nobody can argue. It's true, isn't it?
Yes,
It's a part of the plant that usually bears fruit,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes.
Now, if the student will tell me that, it's what concept? Okay? It's a conceptual idea. It's a unilateral definition. I might gain it from my professor at the time. But if I will ask again, what is a flower for you? That's a different question. Isn't it? What is a flower for you? Then you will give me, oh, a flower, it gives me, something nice, it feels good, isn't it? So you are now talking about certain representation. So that means you are relating flower to something else. That's why it's called relational. Okay? And if you describe one concept of flower and say, oh, sir, there are different kinds of flowers. There are multi-structural knowledge as well. Isn't it?
Yes.
So this can be a flower, this can be a flower. So there are multiple ideas of what flower is all about because there are different kinds of flower. So that is a multi-structural. So if I will explain flower in its concept, in its variety and kinds or types, then I'm moving on the third. If I'm relating now flower into something like, oh, flower reminds me of love. Wow, it's relational. Then it becomes an extended abstract because you are now conceptualizing flower in a very different way. You say, oh, it's not only like that. flower can be eaten.
Ah,
Yes, it
Which
can.
is not usually happening, isn't it?
Yes.
So you are extending the concept of a flower. You see the idea? So this is what Bloom's, in a way, failed to show.
Yes.
Which Gibbs now is giving us this idea. Okay? So Biggs, and the wife I think is Catherine as well. Catherine Tan, the wife, gave us this idea of the Solo taxonomy. How to use the verb. How the students will describe it. So when the student comes up with that article, in your analysis now, you will create a rubrics that will describe whether it is unistructural or extended abstract.
Rubrics very important.
You see? So you can now get an A if you have this kind of knowledge. You have a B if you only have the concept. Get the idea?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But then we all failed in your question then.
It's not really failed.
We have already graduated. It's not fair.
He didn't answer the question. Understand that?
That's the problem with adults. They are not listening to the question.
But adults are always like that because adults we are no
I
longer at the
understand.
we are no longer
Yeah.
at that basic level.
you know, some of students also, we ask them for simple things. Then you will tell them, actually, I'm asking you for this, but you're explaining more.
Because life is so complicated, you know?
Explain something
We
abstract.
already received so many information, so the tendency is we lose the essence of the idea, you know?
Well, we just want to
No, we
please.
never see this. We never see this, is it?
No,
So what taxonomy?
we
So-
were not exposed to it.
But you're not exposed
First
to
time
it.
I see this.
Yeah, first time we see solar.
How long has this been in the...
1982 since John.
1982, huh?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness me.
John Biggs.
And nobody's...
John Biggs and his wife Catherine worked on this thing in the University of Hong Kong.
Ah.
But this was...
During his last years, that is where the constructive alignment came about. But he is already toying with this idea, improving Bloom's, on how you can really measure.
Yeah. But there were a number of people who actually used Bloom's as a platform to come up with better ones.
Yeah,
I know
I
Biggs
never
is
see
one
this.
of them.
Yeah. Not this
Even in a module for assessment also, they never talk about
Yeah.
this.
That's why here you can already see how you will design your assessment and the level of understanding that you like to achieve, isn't it? So if you are just designing, let's say, a multiple choice where they will remember definition and concepts, you know very well that you are only in this or this. Okay, you're playing with these two things. You see? But if you want them to have certain, further understanding of the concept by combining it to a new concept or relating it to another concept, then you are moving upward. That's why here they classify this thing as surface learning and this one is deep learning.
Even the verbs given are very good. The verbs
Precise.
Are, yeah, precise and it scaffolds. And you can
Because
see
that's the
that-
idea. Understanding have different levels. You cannot just say everybody get an A, everybody understand it the same. No, cannot. See, this is what the Solo taxonomy is advocating. If you design your ILO well, you will design your TLA well and your assessment well because you know what you want to assess. Okay? So from here, it depends on what you want. It doesn't mean that this is not important. This is important. Okay? Because this is the knowledge that will build on and move on to that deep learning, So we are not saying that you avoid this and always do this. Cannot. There are information whereby students need to start from zero. If you will ask the student, have you heard about my course? Some say, no. This is my first time to attend this course and I don't have anything, Okay, so that means the student is in this level. So if you will design an activity, you have to design activities that will lead students to better understanding. That's why it is important to know your students.
Very important.
I'll just just give this idea and then you can review this later on. Okay? So deep learning and surface learning. Let's move on to the ILO.
Oh, this would have been so helpful if it had been 1 or 2 weeks ago. We
Why?
just handed in the assignment on Sunday.
Oh.
Everything about this, everything.
We should have, yeah.
Everything from
And it was
rationalizing to
great.
alignment to activities to assessment, every single thing. And
This is how I approach my lessons actually when I was still in UM. So this is how I deal with my students, you know. I let them decide what to do in my class. I'll just give them, hey guys, this is our objective. How to reach that, you have to tell me how. I cannot tell you how. I will just journey with you. You know, that's my role. I will be there. Every time you will ask me, okay, I will try to answer and help you. But your objective is to reach that goal. That is the course objective. Now, what are the things that you need to do to reach that? It's up to you. So sometimes I allow students to have their own learning outcome and let them define, you know, how that learning outcome will be achieved.
because I do have my objectives on the board every single lesson. The very first thing I do when I walk into class, I always have the objective on the board. I'll put them in 1, 2, or 3, or maybe 1, and then review or whatever it is. And very often I close my lesson by asking them, so what exactly did you learn today?
Like, the course objective is always like to understand, isn't it? It's a very general term, to understand. All learning are understanding. No question about it.
Oh, but I'm very direct with mine. Usually
So
I'll
it's
use
not
this.
a direct verb.
Yeah.
Understanding is not a direct verb because you cannot measure it.
Yeah,
Okay?
true.
So the idea is you must use a verb that is directly measurable. That's why solo is observed learning. Yeah? Structure, observed learning outcome. So it must be demonstrated. That's the idea. So here you will see that ILO is written or are written from the student perspective. It's not written from your perspective. Because you're not the one who's going to achieve it. It's them. Okay?
What if their
Yeah,
learning
that's the
outcome
difference.
is not, which is not, sometimes can be, they think they can do better, you know? What if?
No, I think it's the role of the teacher to identify whether the learning outcome agreed is really pointing to the objective of the lesson. So it's your role. This is where you are coming in. Okay? So let them do the learning outcome, but you have to facilitate that what they are setting is achieving the
That
objective.
objective.
So that you miss the same target. You're not going to miss the target. You're achieving the same target. Okay? Maybe one group will do a different activity, the other one will do a different thing, they have a different learning outcome, but that two learning outcomes are still contributory to the objective. That's the idea. Okay? Learning outcome should indicate the level of understanding or performance. That's the idea. The level of understanding. Because understanding is inherent in learning. That's why you cannot use the word understanding as a learning outcome.
Yeah, but because it's very general.
Yeah. See? But some are still using it as a learning outcome, you know. Learning outcome drives the teaching and learning and also the assessment task. It will emanate from that. So if you have a very good learning outcome, rest assured, you can easily identify a good activity and a good assessment tool. Okay? Yeah. The criterion, the simple criterion is appropriate PLA is one that will encourage students to start using the right verbs. So this is giving now the real responsibility to the students. Okay? So that means you are now taking the back seat. Don't push the issue anymore because learning is happening within their experience, not your prompting. Okay? So here, you will teach them how to use the right verb. What is the activity that you think can contribute in the achievement of the objective? And they think, okay, this is a nice activity. What do you think is the learning outcome? given the opportunity to ask themselves, how am I going to do this? You know? Now it's no longer imposed. Okay? It's no longer given from the teacher to the students. It is the student planning the learning. That's why in this principle it's so challenging, you know why? Time is no longer constrained because you're giving them the luxury to plan their learning. Students who are fast learner and slow learner will have to pull their resources together, not anymore working in silo, whereby you have a different activity for slow learner, you have a different activity for fast learner. Yeah, you can do that, but you can now combine the resources that they can, and they can also learn from each other. Yeah.
But how will then the control over time management?
They can set the most allowable time that they can work on. That's why there is one school in the Philippines now who started this in the early I think mid-70s. You know, they call it individual instruction. It's a very experimental school, and they don't have grading system. Okay, and students are given the luxury of time to learn. Not all individual instruction, II they call it. Not all grade 1 who entered at the same time will finish it at the same time. Not all students who started one module will ended up finishing it at the same time. No. It depends on the student's learning pace and time. So that means my classmate in the grade 1 level, you know, may stay there and I'm already progressing.
But how will they then be assessed?
They have their own criteria for assessment. It's more qualitative,
So
and it's a series of activities and modules whereby the student is the one telling, did I pass or not? Did I achieve these or not? Did I learn these things or not?
But how do they, what do you call this, in real life when it comes to once they have completed it?
That's why there is a demonstration. It is aligned to the constructive alignment. What is being measured is the level of performance and level of understanding. It's not the teacher telling, oh, you already passed. No. It's the student confidently saying, teacher, I think I made the module well. You know? So this time, the facilitating effect of the teacher is very evident. It's a very experimental school, and now I think, it's been quite some time. You know, when I go back this August, I'm trying to connect with this school because I want to continue my research on this thing. You know, because I know that is the future direction of schools. No grades, not so much external motivation, but really empowering the students to be learners.
Because now after you're saying, the first thing that came to mind is I really would love to know how they do this.
But I think that would be, I think it's because the content, the way they prepare.
Yeah, it's differently
It's
prepared.
totally different. So a lot initial work it has to be done to ensure that you actually have all those modules available, instructions available, so the students can actually guide themselves and we are just there to help.
And they design teaching and learning in such a way that the student is performing and collaborating with class. You know,
Well, that's a very big task.
it is.
But if you don't certain, I think certain teams, by now you have.
Oh, it's already a college.
Yes.
They are already giving degrees. They started with the preschool and then until the secondary for quite some time. There are quite a lot of graduates now who went through that. And one thing is nice because during my undergrad year in the university, when I was taking psychology, my research is done in the same school. Because we want to find out the students' study habits in a non-graded environment. You
So
know?
I should think the country, Philippines, you have looked into this, if it is successful.
It is already successful.
Are
That's
they
why.
looking into it, the education?
Oh, but the government is, the structure, I think, will not change overnight just because there is one institution doing that. I think the approach of the government in our education is to let this thing flourish altogether. The traditionalist, the innovative and the experimental school, let everybody learn from all these things rather than constraining and telling, oh, let's change because this one school proved it's okay,
Or even the private school does not have to follow the national curriculum. No wonder they have another school called the Blended Learning School, and that school is also very successful. And the time
The government removed a lot of regulations already. Why? Because 88% of schools and universities are run by private.
88%.
Yes.
Wow, that means studying really must be very expensive.
It is, in a sense, for ordinary folks who are earning a middle class. You have to send your students or your kids to nice private schools because that is where the best, teachers and facilities and
That's not bad.
Can I go back and study?
But
Just
that's
be a
fair.
child
It's
again.
not fair for other kids.
Okay, I think we can still end. Okay. Look at the teaching and learning. You see, if it is a teacher controlled, peer controlled, and student controlled, these are the activities that you can do. Okay? And these are the form of learning that you can elicit. Okay? It depends on the verb you will use. Don't worry, you will have a copy of this.
This is actually with the solo taxonomy.
Yeah.
By
This is
John
with the
Dix.
This is with the constructive alignment approach. Meaning there are some really lessons that are teacher controlled. We cannot avoid it.
Yes.
But there are also some that you need peer or groupings, isn't it? And then you have also some solo student activity that they need to do on their own. So you have to understand what kind of learning do you like to elicit. And this is what the slides is telling us. So if you are using syndicated group, meaning group learning, then you might be achieving something like this, elaboration, because before they can agree on one concept, they will filter out, isn't it? They will talk about it and agree. Oh, let's use this thing. So it's an elaboration, they confront some differences, they apply, they discuss about the importance and all these things. Okay? So anyway, you have a copy of this thing. Now let's go to the assessment. This is a very big question that we need to answer. Why we need to assess?
So we know that learning has taken place.
No, the dean and the principal ask us to do that.
That is so true.
And the government is asking you, isn't it? The MQA is asking you.
I've totally forgotten about the
It's the biggest blunder of all.
Yes.
Because assessment is being done top-down, which is wrong. Assessment must be done based on the learning outcome.
Actually, to get feedback.
Yes. On top of all these things, isn't it? You are assessing because you want to inform, the other stakeholders that in my school, students are learning. But that's not the ultimate goal. But now we are fighting for it, isn't it? Schools are competing on best results on assessment, whether it is localized or national exam, isn't it?
Teachers really do have a very, very, very tough life. We have to please the students and the administrators.
And the paranoia of getting A.
Yes. The parents here.
See, even the parents are,
Now the parents are horrible.
I'm sending you to school to get an A.
Yes.
No other grades but A.
I pay so much.
That's why I'm sending you to tutorial.
Yeah.
The mentality is driving it, But the basic question is, assessment is designed to find out whether students are really learning or not.
No wonder my mother kept an accounts book to show me how much she's paying.
Really? That's interesting.
Every level, the amount.
Oh.
Because I don't study locally, I studied overseas, so
you're indebted.
I think it has its own value as well, isn't it? But I think the idea here is to strike the right valuing when it comes to education. Student or kids must not feel that they are being forced to do that. Kids must understand that in order for you to be a better person, you need to do this. You know?
But the problem is with the society. I think I actually advocate that my boys should learn because they like to learn. So I never force them. And you know what happened? They are not successful. And everybody casted me. And then my families, my sisters, my uncles, you see, you never force them to study. You see, look at them. They are not, they are not doing what everybody's doing. They are not working. They are not, earning money. They are not, when they say earning money means, lawyer law, doctor law. No, the kind of professionals earning. I look at
But that is the society's standard.
Yes.
That's the point.
But do you know that her son is only 20 plus and he's doing his PhD?
See?
That is already a success.
I think the measurement and the value that the society would like to impose on everybody is something that is not, again, internalized. You know? The idea here is that whether you like it or not, at the end of the day, it's the individual's happiness that is important.
yes, but a lot of people cannot see that.
Yeah, but
So I say,
Why? Because they themselves, okay, felt that they are not succeeding much, I tell you.
It's
Those people who are saying, why are your kids like this? Why do you tolerate these things? You know? Why? Because they are trying to prove that their formula is correct.
Yeah. But then again, it is also because a lot of parents, once the children are beyond 18, these people must understand that they have to learn how to put food on the table for themselves.
On your own.
On your own. So,
But
you're
who says
forced to-
that 18 it should be like that? It's another external mental model that is applied to us, isn't it? Why, if my kids wants to stay more with me, why should I not feed my kids?
Yeah. Well, that's because they say what if anything, like for me, alright, for me, had my mom not pushed me out to work in the first place, I wouldn't have known that they would have passed away so early. What would have happened to me if she didn't push me out to the workforce?
Same thing, you will survive on your own because normal human being is born to survive. But the fear is the one that cripples most of us. We thought that by being different, we will not succeed. You know, that's the point. So there is a creeping fear among us that we don't acknowledge. You know, you're so thankful that your mom pushed you. But nobody knows, you know. Still, you will still survive even though without your parents, I tell you. Why? Because it's a normal and natural tendency to preserve who we are. Okay? No matter at what level, it depends on your own level of happiness. My happiness is different from your happiness, definitely. You see? It's very personal, it's very subjective. That's why even with my kids, my wife is the what do you call this, the academic achiever. From, I think, prep to the master's level that she finished. She's been a scholar, she's been #1, she's been, you know, an honor, okay? The daddy is not. Daddy is just a simple student who doesn't like to achieve, okay? But one time, I think my eldest, who is going to the nursery now for the first time, stepping inside school for the first time. The value is conflicting with my wife. My wife she wants the kids to be like her. Mine is different. I want her to enjoy the school.
The process.
Okay? So there are already conflicting values inside the family, and now the kids must somehow synthesize this on her own. So I let my wife, okay, let's go to this school because this is the best school in our area, and it is run by, you know, nice Catholic nuns and everything. Okay, fine. Okay, we're so okay with that because we came into Catholic school as well. So okay, fine. In the middle of the year, Every time I will ask my daughter, how's school, how's your teacher, how's the activity. Every day we will talk about it every night. So until such time my daughter decided to say this thing. Dad, I don't like school. So why? Kids are only crying and noisy and playing. And that's the same age, you see. So if you're not going to look at the differences in the value of the individual, you will miss the point, okay? Not because they are of the same age, they will behave the same. No. They will value the experience differently. So I asked my daughter at that age, nursery, telling me that school is not good. I said, why? Well, it's so noisy, blah, blah, blah. How's the teacher? The teacher is spending so much time, pacifying, crying kid. Okay, so what do you want me to do? Can we look for another school? Okay, fine. So
She
I thought,
actually said
yes. So I asked my wife again, I said, it's your choice, not my choice, okay? This time, it's her choice. She will look for the school she likes.
But don't you think she may be too young to make that kind of decision?
That's the problem with adult.
Yeah.
You always label kids that they are not capable of thinking.
No, it's not that. What I'm saying here is, how do they know which school is good?
Then it's my role as a father to facilitate it.
Yeah.
So I asked her, what kind of school do you like? Okay, we will find quite a lot of school in the area and I will show you the schools, what they are doing. And if you think it's okay, then we will go to that. So we changed school. Okay, we found one which is not Catholic and, it's a different one and my relatives are telling me, why are you sending your kids there, I said, I have to ask my kid if they like it. So she went there. And finally, consistently she's telling me, yeah, Dad, school is fine, school is great, the teacher is nice, my classmate is nice, okay, fine, okay. So are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that school? Yes. After that she stayed. Okay? Now, what is the value of the story? The value is this. You have to give them the opportunity to decide for themselves and make them responsible for that. Because if kids are always relying on what we want for them, that we think it's better,
Yes.
they won't be able to realize that it's their responsibility. Sooner or later, because we always make the choice, they will blame you for the failure.
Yes. You are
And you will say, of all the things I did for you, you're blaming me?
Yeah.
Because you never gave me a chance to say something I like.
Like some of students, you ask them why they fail. Actually, I don't like this course. My mom enrolled me.
Yeah.
Then that is a very bad reason to reckon with. That's something we cannot control.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Why parents are dominating the decision
It
process.
is very normal in Asian
Yeah, always right.
Because even my QS students, when I was teaching them, half of them they just sat like that in class, and I asked them, well, firstly because they say they didn't like English, secondly because
Yeah, the
It's a
question of
cost.
I didn't like is a very crucial question. Everybody must process it.
yes,
The moment somebody said, I don't like this, okay, I'm not happy with this, something is wrong. That's why that is where the facilitating aspect is important. So if you are encountering it in the class, you have to filter out the reasons why. Okay? And then you can process it in such a way that, okay, there are things that you can no longer change now at the moment. How are you going to benefit from the now, not from tomorrow, not from the past, because we cannot change it anymore. Now, how are you going to benefit from this experience is the most important thing.
I've tried by using the humanistic element, the communication. I counseled them a lot. The kind of work that three-quarters of them actually produced were above par, but still at the end of it, nowadays even they walk past me, they don't even want to look at me.
No, I think you cannot control everything.
Yeah.
That's the point. I think what is important here is you have because my role here is also limited. I cannot change the world for you. You know, that's the very reality that we need to face. But I can only do as much. If you're interested with this class, and if you think you will benefit from my class, I will be there. You know, but you have to be there as well. I cannot do it for you. You know, that's the thing. So I think that is the dichotomy that we are talking about. Sometimes the reality outside in the family is totally different from what is experienced in the school. That's why most students now are really in a what you call this, shall we say, in a neurotic situation on how to deal with two worlds. The school is telling this, but my family is doing a different thing.
The third one is they themselves.
Yeah. I mean, how am I going to see an integrated person if they are in an environment that they cannot understand? You see? So that is the idea that what we are trying to say here, that there must be a shift in the mental model. You know, information is not important. It is how we are going to use the information.
The whole paradigm is what.
Yeah. It is a very big challenge, especially for the educational system.
Very.
But the government, why can't they see it?
Don't look at the government. They will not change just because you say
That
it.
one policy.
Politicians,
No questions.
No, but it affects our kids.
No,
We must understand that because it affects our kids.
Yes, it will. But the thing here is, I think, what is within the control of the parents is to ensure that I'm giving and providing the right condition for the right values to be there. The system may be defective because we cannot have full control of it. The government will always design something they like. It's a political decision, okay? And it caters to maybe some or maybe majority, we don't know. But I think the family must be the baseline or the first move of establishing the fundamentals. Okay? Yes, the school is doing this. They are always telling about this and that, but it doesn't mean it's the same thing at home, you know, that we will just blindly follow. That's why my kids, they are achieving well. Especially my eldest is always on the top 5. Every time she will say, hey dad, I'm number 3, number 4, you know. And I will just say, okay, remember the rules that we talk about, the principle that I shared to you? It's not about the recognition. It's about the fun. Are you enjoying the process? Have you gained something from the process? That is the most important thing. The prize, the achievement, the medals, that is just an icing.
You're secondary.
It's not important to Danny, is it? Anyway, you
Mommy
could.
very important.
No, mommy already tamed herself. Because she knew. I think it's a complementary thing because she provides the discipline, I provide a different one.
Yes.
You know, whereby the kids are looking at it now from a bigger picture, rather than having a very strict rule and structured, you know, environment that in my house, you know, you cannot just do this because they said it, you know.
But it elevates the child's status in the sense that they no longer think like a child.
Most of my friends and my relatives are telling that to us. You know, you treat your kids like adults.
Yeah.
That's why they behave like
Like
adults.
adults, yeah.
I said, what to do? I'm an adult.
Mm.
If I will act like kids, then we will have problem at home, I said.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
So if they will be bound to become adults later on, then they have to understand it from the adult perspective,
Precisely.
not from a child's perspective, I said. That is what we are going to do, I said, and I think it's beneficial for us. Because they themselves now are constructing all these values, whether it is useful or not. So I always tell them, if you fail, don't blame anybody. Maybe it's your choice. Okay? If you succeed, don't attribute it to other people as well, because you did it yourself. Okay? That is very important for kids to understand in order rather than I can do it because my mom is not there, I cannot do it because my dad is not there. You know, sometimes some kids are too dependent in a sense that they don't see themselves. So I think this is just an additional information, okay? So this is, I will send it to you, don't worry, you will see this, okay? Now, look at this thing. Assessment should be analytic versus holistic. Sometimes we end up analyzing and we cannot connect it to the bigger picture, isn't it? So students are at a loss. They cannot use it. You know? Sometimes we are more focused on marking, you know, rather than assessing. Assessing is giving the right feedback. That is the second part of it. Okay? And then criterion reference, the one that we talked about, it's qualitative. Open to an intended but desirable outcome. Be ready for that. What do you call this? This is a simple aha moment. The student discovered something that you never mentioned. Isn't it? Sometimes it's nice to process that. What have you learned in the experience? And you will find out a lot that you don't plan and you don't intend. That is nice. Okay?
But we as teachers, we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, you need to.
Because the students otherwise will take it, like a student of mine, she actually pointed out to me that I made a mistake. And I actually apologized that she was taken.
And I think, it's okay. I mean, you have to process all these things, you know, all these things. Now, the grading is derived from the aggregate performance. Okay? When we say aggregate, these are the various activities that you ask them to perform. Okay? And let them see it from their perspective, not from their own perspective. Okay? I think that is the value of the constructive alignment. I think this is what you did. Okay? So I think the idea in the activity is when you design item O, it should be something direct. It should be a verb that can be measured, that can be observed, and it can translate into an activity. Okay? It's the same activity. When you say you write, you drive, you eat, that is your activity. Okay? So you want to teach how to drive, and then you ask them to watch a video on how to drive. You know, and then you assess the student, what are the things you saw on the video. That is not the learning outcome. The learning outcome is to drive well.